Welcome to the Wicket.
Welcome to a new episode of The Wicket, the weekly cricket podcast by Arab News that looks at the latest news and results from around the Middle East, Asia and the world. I'm Brian Murgatroyd, and with me today and every week is Arab News columnist Jon Pike and also cricket reporter Subas Humagain. We've got a lot to get through this week, so let's get cracking. Plenty to talk about. We've got the latest from the ICC Cricket World Cup in India, a T20 tri-series in Nepal involving Nepal, the UAE and Hong Kong. A warm-up for all three sides, that event, ahead of the T20 World Cup qualifiers in Nepal that start on the 30th of October. And Subas Humagain is there. Oman against Afghanistan A, that's taking place in Oman. It represents Oman's preparation for that T20 World Cup qualifier. There's the ACC Men's Under-19 Premier Cup going on in Malaysia. That's ongoing. And, of course, in the near future, there's the ILT20 UAE Player Draft. That takes place on Friday, the 20th of October. And we'll have more details of that in our next podcast. But let's crack on then. And the topic that's on everyone's lips at the moment, of course, is the ICC Cricket World Cup. Afghanistan and the Netherlands, they've brought this World Cup to life with their wins against England, the reigning champions, and South Africa. Jon, let's start with you, if I may. Afghanistan, what a performance by them against England. The spin threat of Nabi, Mujib and Rashid, you have to say, all they really lack is consistency to make themselves a top-class side.
Yes, I agree with that. What I sort of disappointed about, and I'm sure I'm not alone, is the performance of England. They're lacklustre, leaden-footed. I just got the impression they're not playing 50-over cricket. They're caught somewhere between 20 over and 50 overs, it seems. The two bowlers, Sam Curran and Chris Wokes, dreadful figures. I can't imagine that one of those is going to play in the next match. And it's also pretty strange that Ben Stokes, whether he's fit or not, didn't play in that match. They probably needed him. Maybe they were a little bit complacent, thinking that Afghanistan could be beaten easily and they'd save him for the South Africa match. But either way, it looks to me like they're in a little bit of disarray. Take nothing away absolutely from Afghanistan's performance.
Yes, a loss for England against New Zealand in their opening match. Now a loss against Afghanistan. They haven't got a lot of wiggle room from here on in, have they?
No, they have very little wiggle room. I mean, they've got Netherlands to play. Now, Netherlands proved that they are not necessarily any pushover. They've got Pakistan to play, they've got India to play, they've got South Africa to play, and of course they've got Australia to play. Now, in order to get into the last four, surely they've got to win three out of those games against the top teams, and also have to beat Netherlands, I would think. And the way they're playing at the moment, one would have severe doubts unless they can regroup.
Well, the Netherlands, this result comes from the time, I guess, that they spent in the World Cup Super League. Their win against South Africa. They learned a lot by playing against better sides on a regular basis, and this is the end product.
Well, yes, in a way, that's true, but they hadn't played any ODI cricket since they qualified in the middle of July. Now, one could argue that both ways, that they've had a break and have worked on things. On the other hand, one could argue that they were match rusty. And certainly I was fortunate to be there last night, and the first part of their innings was pretty average. I have to say they looked well beaten at 5 down for 120. Scott Edwards, the captain, looked like he could only play one shot, which is a sweep. And then all of a sudden, they decided that they would take the attack to the South Africans. Edwards started unfurling shots that didn't know he had. And Van der Merwe, of course, helped him, and then there were some lusty blows at the end. And it really did enervate the crowd. And it was pretty impressive and competitive total, as it turned out to be. One thing that did stand out for me was that, and it did also occur to me in the previous South African match, that when they're under pressure, the South Africans look flustered and act flustered, and they certainly bowled flustered. They bowled a total of 21 wides in that match last night. Now that's another 3.5 overs in a game reduced to 43 overs per side. That's ill discipline. That shouldn't be happening. Players of that experience and ability.
Should we call it a blip by the South Africans after they were so impressive in earlier performances, or is there something more concerning for them, do you think?
Yeah, I would have thought there's something more concerning. I thought there was a very interesting tactic deployed by the Netherlands. They opened with 2 spinners. Clearly, South Africa weren't expecting that, and they couldn't master them. And I think that's something that will have been spotted by other sides. If you can get amongst that top order, the tail looks long, and I think it would become. I would be concerned, and I say they're bowled with ill discipline. They seriously need to tighten up if they're going to capitalise on the previously good start they had.
Subas, let's have your take on the wins for Afghanistan and the Netherlands. What did you make of what's happened?
Afghanistan win, I think that was beckoning, because the way Afghanistan have been playing in recent years, we were expecting this surprise, but the way they performed, it was not a surprise. It was expected result, and the way the team performed, especially start from the Ron Munlabas. So that kept up the momentum, and the way the spinners, the captain used the field setup, they were all excited with the wickets, and the crowd support helped them a lot as well. The home support that they have been using the Indian ground for so long. So that helped a bit, and I think Afghanistan's performance in recent years also showed that they couldn't be taken easily, and England were unlucky one to face that threat.
And what about the Netherlands? What about that victory against South Africa? I'm sure very few people predicted that.
Yeah, the way South African batsmen were playing in the previous matches, this was totally unexpected, and the rain, it was a spoiled start for both the teams, and Netherlands, special mention to the captain Scott Edwards, he kept up the momentum, he rescued the team, and the bowlers just continued what he started in the first innings. So for Netherlands, the West Indies game in the qualifiers and the Scotland scare that they paid off, I think that was, they had to make up their mark that they have gone over the test nations to get the berth in the World Cup. And I think that the yesterday's match was one good point for them to show for the world cricket.
Jon, let's talk about the hosts, India. Can anyone get near them in this tournament?
No, I don't think so. I think, again, it's everywhere I go, everybody I speak to is expecting, if not demanding, that India win this tournament. I think there are, say, 5 teams who are actually battling to play against them in the final, to be almost sacrificial lambs. I cannot see them being stopped. Their quick bowlers have stepped up. The captain has made runs against Pakistan. Kohli's made runs. They've got Sky back in the team. Rahul looks imperious. It would be a major shock if they didn't go through to the final. Can see them losing. It would take a major upset, a major performance by one of those other sides to do that. I'd be very surprised. It's all geared one way.
Subas, just talk to us about Pakistan, that loss against India, a disastrous collapse. They lost 8 wickets for 36, having reached 155 for 2 at one point. What can we say about them?
I think lack of responsibility from the middle order, especially South Shakil and Iftikhar. Much was expected from them. They just had to stay, give support to Rizwan. Babar and Rizwan had set the tone for Pakistan team. But the crowd took over, and South Shakil, I think he should be gutted that he had a chance to make his mark in this team. And now that he's failed, Pakistan are in deep trouble now. And Australia, the game against Australia is going to be a shootout between both the teams. I think the recent results of Afghanistan and Netherlands have given Australia a huge push for that semi-final battle, and Pakistan would be gutted that they couldn't perform after that start from Babar and Rizwan.
John, let's talk about New Zealand. They're set to be without captain Kane Williamson again after a freak thumb injury where a throw hit him on the hand just as he's come back, of course, from his long-term knee injury. It's another setback for them. They've managed to get over all the setbacks that have been thrown in front of them so far. Can they keep going again now?
Yes, I think they can. Major blow, yes, for Kane. It was, as you say, desperately unfortunate and freak injury. I shouldn't think that the fielder will be getting a birthday card from Kane. It was one of those really unnecessary things, and you could tell straight away that he knew he was in trouble. There's talk about him being available for the latter stages of the tournament, but then he's then got to gear up to bat properly again, and he showed that he began to go through the gears in the later part of his innings. They're a resilient bunch. You know my view on them. I think I'm not yet dissuaded that they can't overcome another setback.
And Australia, John, a first win against Sri Lanka. But does this mean everything's rosy in the garden now?
I don't necessarily rosy, but they must have had some pretty serious internal talks. They made what appeared on the surface to be a curious change, almost a scapegoat change of replacing Alex Carey. It worked. I think that their main issue is the stodginess of Smith and Labuschagne at this level. Whether they get broken up, I think Travis Head is on the way to recovery, very close to return. His aggressive style is better suited to ODI, and of course he can bowl. So I think Australia have got a couple of things to improve on and strengthen with. So I wouldn't be writing them off yet.
John, you've maintained it's a battle between 6 to make the 4 semi-final spots, with those 6 being India, New Zealand, South Africa, Pakistan, England and Australia. Who are you looking at the moment on the basis of what you've seen for those 4 positions? You've obviously mentioned India already as cast iron certainties, but who else? Who else aside from them?
Well, I'd be surprised if New Zealand don't get there. I think they look a well-organised, well-managed, very competent unit. I think Australia are going to sneak in to that 4. We've got some pretty big matches, some shootouts coming up, and they're going to determine ultimately those 4 positions. I'm not convinced that England are going to be able to improve enough. So I'm going for, India, New Zealand. I'm going for Australia. I've always felt that Pakistan wouldn't get there for various reasons. So we're then looking at probably South Africa, England as contenders, and a lot's going to hinge on Saturday's match between these 2. Both bruised and shaken from shock defeats. The question of which one of those 2 sides is going to come out in better health and better spirit. It should be a hell of a game.
Now, the Men's Cricket World Cup isn't the only action taking place in Nepal. There's a T20 tri-series between the hosts, the UAE and Hong Kong, with all 3 sides using it as a warm-up for the main event. And that main event is the Asian T20 World Cup qualifiers that start in Nepal on October the 30th. That tournament involves 8 sides. That's Bahrain, Hong Kong, Kuwait, Malaysia, Nepal, Oman, Singapore and the UAE. And 2 of them will win through to the T20 World Cup in the USA and the Caribbean next year. Now, Subas is in Nepal for the tri-series, and he can offer us his thoughts now on that tri-series and the T20 World Cup qualifier that follows. Subas, you've got quite a period of cricket to come in Nepal now.
Yeah, a week full of cricket coming up, and it's a festive season. It's Dasai in Nepal, and it will be public holiday for a week. So a lot of cricket coming up, and the fans are flocked in already waited in the ticket booths. We can see for the first match itself. And the World Cup qualifier is biggest occasion because Nepal has not been able to play the World Cups for 10 years now, and they have playing qualifiers at home. Much is expected from this team. Monty Desai is unbeaten at home, and that sets up the tone for this big occasion.
And what about the prospects of those 3 sides in the tri-series, the UAE, Hong Kong and Nepal? What are your expectations for the 3 teams?
I think this tournament will be a bigger boost for UAE and Hong Kong, because the ground that has been used for the tournament will be the same ground the UAE and Hong Kong will be playing the group matches, because Bulpani Cricket Ground is hosting its first ever T20I in this series. So this will be a better preparation for UAE and Hong Kong to get used to the environment, the conditions, because the pitch is newly laid and there has not been much cricket in this pitch. So UAE and Hong Kong will try to get much use of these conditions. And for Nepal, I think they are playing in the secondary ground for this tournament, and they'll look to fine-tune their squad for the World Cup qualifiers. They've got 18 players in the team, and their main spinner Sandeep Lamisane is not in the team. So there's a big issue in spin department, which is considered the biggest strength in Nepalese team. Lalit Narayan Rajbangshi, he had done his beauty bone, he's had surgery, and it's been 6 weeks since he's had surgery, and he's trying to make his comeback. So Nepal will be looking to fine-tune their squad, while UAE and Hong Kong will try to settle in these new conditions.
Oman are warming up for that T20 World Cup qualifier by hosting Afghanistan A in Doha. They've already played 2 one-day matches, both won by a strong Afghanistan A side, and now they're playing 5 T20s. The first match was played on Tuesday, the 17th of October, and it was a crushing win for Oman, actually, by 9 wickets with 8 overs to spare, as Kashyap Prajapati, who scored 100 in the 50-over World Cup qualifier in Zimbabwe, and Aqib Ilyas, who's recovered from a tumour in his ankle to return to playing, they made light of the Afghan score of 112 for 9. An indication of that strength in Afghanistan A's ranks is that the side includes Hazratullah Zazai, who hit 6 sixes in an over in the Afghanistan Premier League when that took place in Sharjah a few years ago. There's wicketkeeper batter Mohammad Shahzad, the great entertainer. There's all-rounder Karim Janat, and wrist spinner Qais Ahmed as well, who's been in demand all around the world for his ability in T20 cricket. Oman, well, they're packed with the core of the side that played in the 50-over World Cup qualifier in Zimbabwe in June and July and made the Super 6 stage. So it's a terrific series for both teams to test their mettle. John, it's ideal preparation for Oman, that, isn't it, leading into the T20 World Cup qualifier?
Yes, it is. Pretty well now, perfect, and it'll be even more perfect. It will be perfect if they manage to come out on top in the series. The initial omens, as you mentioned, from the first match are very clear from a very substantial 9-wicket win. One gets the feeling that Oman have got the bit between their teeth. They've had a couple of recent disappointments qualifying, and it looks like they want to set the record straight. And this is a very good opportunity to show what they're capable of doing. They are going to provide, I think, pretty stern opposite challenges to UAE and Nepal in the regional qualifier. And in a way, it's good to see that they can bounce back from very recent disappointments.
The Asian Cricket Council Under-19 Premier Cup, that's taking place in Malaysia with the final on Tuesday, the 24th of October. It involves 16 teams, divided into 4 groups. Group A has got Nepal, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia and Iran. Group B features the UAE, Oman, Qatar and China. Group C includes Singapore, Kuwait, Thailand and the Maldives. And Group D has got Hong Kong, Malaysia, Japan and Indonesia. We'll have a full wrap of that event in our next podcast. And something else to look out for in that next podcast will be the result of the ILT20 draft for UAE players. That's due to happen on Friday, October the 20th, with the 6 franchises in the UAE's international T20 event looking to select 13 players between them to complete their rosters of local players. Each team must have 4 UAE players on its books, and 2 of them must be in each starting lineup. 11 players have already been retained by the franchises, so very soon we'll find out who will be slotting in alongside them. Asif Khan was the leading run scorer, and left-arm spinner Haider Ali, the top wicket taker in the development tournament that preceded this draft. That's a tournament that's acted as a shop window for the players to put themselves forward for selection. We'll let you know who's been picked up and by which teams in our next episode. So, with the week to come, what's on your radars, gentlemen, World Cup or otherwise? Subas, if I can start with you. Obviously, there's some big games to come in the World Cup. Australia against Pakistan, England against South Africa, and India against New Zealand. You're, of course, in Nepal for the T20 Tri-Series. What are your expectations for the week ahead?
Yeah, my preference would be looking at Nepal playing against UAE and Hong Kong as they fine-tune the performance for the World Cup qualifiers. The qualifiers from the following week will be a big one because UAE and Hong Kong will pose a threat. Oman will join the party. A week later, there will be much big things at stake for these associate teams. And regarding the World Cup, I think Pakistan and Australia both would be raring to get that win. I think only one with the permutations and combinations in the World Cup, only one team will be able to go forward, and they will like to get that win. Talking about India and New Zealand, I think they're two favorites to go through. They've been unbeaten. They have been performing brilliantly, and India with their home team, I think they'll be the first one to get this semi-final berth booked away.
I don't know, but I'm going to get to Mumbai for the England-South Africa. That's certainly one on my radar. Yes, the India-New Zealand match in Dharamsala is a mouth-watering prospect. I don't know how many local supporters they're going to find to be able to provide the support for the host nation, but I'm sure they will manage it somehow. The other interesting thing going forward for next week is what are the Netherlands going to perform like in their forthcoming matches? Having been sort of rather unsympathetically written off by many as having no hope, they now have plenty of hope. They play Australia in Delhi next Wednesday, October 25th, and I'm hoping to be at that match. They play Bangladesh on the Saturday. So if one's looking for a dark horse to upset a few more, there is, of course, Afghanistan, but the Dutch seem to have come up with a formula that might take a bit of getting used to by the big teams.
Well, there's been plenty of good cricket all around the world over the past week, and there'll be plenty more to come. And we, of course, will bring you all the reaction to that here on The Wicket. But thanks for joining us on this podcast. We'll be back soon with more cricket chat from the Gulf region, Asia and worldwide. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment on what you've heard wherever you get your podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback and let us know if there's anything you'd like us to feature in future episodes. For now, though, this is Brian Murgatroyd along with Jon Pike and Subas Humagain saying thanks very much for listening, and we look forward to your company next time.